Revelation chapter 21, verse 18. And the building of the wall of it was of jasper, and the city was pure gold, like unto clear glass. Shalom Yasharala, peace Israel. Kal halayim Allahayinawa, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakak Wadash. All praises to our power, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakak Wadash. Double honor to our apostles and elders, great millstone. Peace and blessing to elect Israel. Shalom. Job chapter 36, verse 7. He withdraweth not his eyes from the righteous, but with kings are they on the throne. Yeah, he doth establish them forever, and they are exalted. Psalms chapter 122 and verse 4. Beginning at verse 3. Jerusalem is built as a city that's compact together. Whither the tribes go up, the tribes of the Lord, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, unto the testimony of Israel, to give thanks unto the name of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. But there are set thrones of judgment, the thrones of the house of David. This is a big thing, man, because we are a part of power that we can't fully comprehend right now. We are a part of something that's beyond this world, beyond this earthly realm, but it's going to be established on this earthly realm, on this earth. Okay? Because as it tells us in the Lord's Prayer, on earth as it is in heaven. Yes, our kingdom will be on the earth, but the order, the prestige and the honor, the majesty, but beginning with the order, that's coming from the heavens. And along with that, the glory. Okay? So what we're a part of is well worth it, man. Okay? It's more than worth it.
All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Kakwadash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples to his younger brothers. And peace and blessing, salutations to the hopeful elect out there pushing his word in truth and in sincerity across the four winds in the name of Yahweh Bahashem Yahushai, pushing to get up out of here. Shalom to the hopeful elect, the believers, the listeners whom have came back to the obedience of the scriptures through faith in Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. All right, and what we're going to get into today, World War III update. And, the biggest talk in the news of late, the fall of the Syrian government, by, the so-called Syrian rebels, all right, which we know the Syrian rebels, are fully backed, by the West, mainly America and the small hats, and this is a joint, CIA, okay, and Mossad, which is the small hat secret service, or the small hat, intelligence agency, which is, equivalent to America CIA, so this is a joint, CIA, all right, and Mossad, attack, pretty much a coup, and what we're seeing, all right, is, an uproar in their region, because that tilted the scales, all right, in the ways of the West. Okay. And we're going to go into how it all plays in our favor. What we're seeing happening is back and forth between East and West, Russia and America, Iran, the small hats. Okay. The beast system, the BRICS, all of it works in our favor. This back and forth that we're seeing, and it's going to lead to a global war. a global war, because all these nations are interconnected somehow, some way, you know, and none of these nations involved, all right, can see, you see, the allies of the West and the allies of the East, okay, the allies of the West coming under America and the small hats, and the allies of the East coming under Russia and Iran, okay, and all these nations, okay, all these players, okay, have, personal interests at stake. And the Lord got it set up like this, to where these nations are going to have to get involved, okay, when this thing goes haywire. All right. So what we've seen, was a special military operation in Syria that toppled, the Syrian government on the beside, okay, aside, I mean. All right. So um I want to start here, okay, get a precept, and then I want to play a few clips from Scott Ritter and just kind of explain what's going on. Probably not gonna be a lot of precepts. I really just want to explain what this means, and the narrative, and just some spiritual speculation, going forth. All right, so you read the book Isaiah 46:9. It says, "Remember the former things of old, for I am the Most High, and there is none else. I am the Most High, and there is none like me." All right, Isaiah 46:10, declaring the end from the beginning and from the ancient times, the things that are not yet done, saying, "My counsel shall stand, and I will do all my pleasure." Okay, so all these major events that we're seeing happening is the Lord doing his pleasure in the earth. Okay, this is the Lord's algorithm for all his prophecies to come to pass, just as he said they would. Okay, so it's a few moving parts within the whole scheme of things. You had Turkey, pretty much aiding, America and the small hats, and Turkey is pretty much what we seeing with them. They're playing both sides, as they, made different, pacts and alliances, and they've done joint military exercises with Iran and Russia. Okay, but for them to, aid the West, okay, in this special military operation, okay, using these mercenaries, all right, these Syrian rebels, okay, to topple the Assad regime in Syria, okay. They kind of they threw shockwaves, they threw mixed signals. All right, but we know, all right, through prophecy that eventually Turkey is going to side, all right, with Iran and Russia, okay, because leading up to war, you have people, change allegiances all the time. All right. You had one of those world war with Italy. They changed sides 3 times during the war. Okay. So you're gonna have Turkey, they're gonna be playing both sides. You had Erdogan, the leader of Turkey. He mentioned like now there's only two leaders left in the world, him and Putin. So he aids, the West, okay, which the West is completely anti-Russian, all right. But then he comes out and make a statement that there's only two leaders left, him and Putin, you know. So with Turkey, we're going to see them play both sides, and eventually they're going to align themselves with, all right, Russia and Iran, as prophecy says, all right. There's no doubt about it, okay. Just to kind of explain it, because Turkey, threw people for a loop, what they did, but you know, this is how war goes. All right, now I want to get this here from Scott Ritter, okay, and kind of explain the build up, to what we've seen unfold. Okay. Um. Yep. All right. So he's kind of going to explain, the build up to where we got to where we at now. To the topple of the Assad regime, okay, in Syria, which Assad was pro-Russia and pro-Iran. So you had a pro, Russia and Iranian government, okay, in Syria, okay, and Russia and Iran, benefited, with the Assad regime in power, because they was able to project more military might in their region, okay, by staging military assets in Syria, okay. But now things have changed, all right, and we're gonna go into it. So let's let Scott go for a minute. I got two snippets from this video, all right, probably about 5-6 minutes all together. They're just gonna expound on it. All right. So let's play this.
Didn't overthrow Assad, took everybody by surprise. Nobody anticipated this happening. So the key question is, how did this happen? I mean, and this is the great unknown. Russia and Iran have a heavy presence in Syria, and they're not stupid people. They've had their thumb on the pulse of Syria since 2014, 2015. It was Qasem Soleimani, the Al-Quds Force commander, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard commander, who went to Moscow in the summer of 2015 and pleaded for Russia to intervene. And in September 2015, the Russians came in, and together, the Russian Air Force, the Iranian leadership, Iranian forces and proxies propped up the Syrian army. And in several years' time, they won an impressive victory, liberated the territory around Damascus, and drove the jihadists, al-Nusra Front and others, out of mainstream Syria into Idlib, where they were sort of hemmed in there, and that's where they've been hemmed in ever since. The problem comes with the Syrian government and the Syrian army. This goes back to 2000 when Bashar al-Assad took over. He took over a rotten edifice. The Ba'athist regime, the generals, the governors were all very corrupt. His father was a failing leader, failing in his ability to ascertain. So people around him stepped in and they started to enrich themselves. When Bashar al-Assad came in, one of the first things he did is shut down the corrupt general that was running the Syrian operation in Lebanon. And he actually moved to pull the Syrian troops out. That almost cost him his life, because in doing that, he disrupted not only the economy of the corrupt generals and governors, but the economy of Syria, which isn't an economy. It's just this corrupt edifice. And so he had to slow down. And now this war came, and he can't afford to shake up his power base. And so he has to let the generals and the governors do what they do, which is enrich themselves. And once the fighting stopped and things settled down, these people, instead of preparing for war, enriched themselves. And this gets worse when you have sanctions. The United States has put the Caesar sanctions on and all other sanctions on Syria. Everybody who knows this, and I saw this firsthand in Iraq, when you sanction an economy, the first thing that happens is you get a black market economy. And that's an economy off the books. And in Syria, the economy that already existed was a corrupt economy. Now the sanctions come in and it becomes an even more corrupt economy, where the generals, the governors, the civil servants are all making money. Nobody's focused on doing their job. Everybody's focused on how much money they can make, how they can consolidate their wealth. And they stopped training, they stopped organizing, they stopped doing anything. And so what looked like it was supposed to be a solid military of around 200,000 was a house of cards. Apparently the Russians knew this. In 2018, the Russians approached Assad and said, you have to reform this from the bottom up. Our generals are telling us that this system isn't going to work. We won this battle because of our Air Force, Iranian leadership, the sacrifice of 4,000 pro-Iranian proxies. But now you have to take over. You have to reform. But Assad couldn't, because to reform the military meant that he had to change the power base, and he wasn't confident enough in his ability to step forward and do that. So he pushed the Russians back, and the Russians were very frustrated. The Iranians attempted to come in and do the same thing, but they ran into a problem too. The Russians had said, they told the Iranians, you came in, you helped solve the situation. Now you have to go home. Syria cannot become an outpost of Iran. The Israelis don't want it. The Americans don't want it. The Turks don't want it. And we don't want to be in the middle of this geopolitical nonsense. We came in to stabilize Assad, not promote the greater Iranian axis of resistance empire. And so there was Russian pushback, but there was also Syrian pushback, because the Iranians come in, they're very ideologically motivated. They put up the posters of Qasem Soleimani and their Khamenei, and then Hezbollah comes in, Iranian proxy puts up Hassan Nasrallah, and the Sunnis, who are the majority population in Syria, are resentful of this. And so the Iranians also had to take a step back. That meant that the two entities that propped up Israel or Syria and helped them win in 2017 to 2020 aren't playing a role. And when HTS attacked the other day, they came in, and what was supposed to be a brick wall that they were supposed to chip at, they touched it. It turned out to be a deck of cards. They hit it, and the whole thing collapsed, took everybody by surprise.
So let's expound on, what he's saying. All right. So you had 2014 and the war in Syria started. All right. Pretty much you had this whole thing with ISIS. ISIS, was the boogeyman of the time. All right. Which they was backed by the West, nothing but CIA, Mossad, all right, operatives. Okay. So ISIS, they were supposed to topple the Assad regime. All right. In 2014. All right. But what happened? Iran began to intervene, and Iran went and got aid from Russia, and Russia began to intervene, okay, in Syria. So Iran and Russia was the reason the Assad government didn't fall in 2014. All right. Russia came in, they pretty much obliterated ISIS. Okay, Russia and Iran, they pretty much obliterated ISIS. Russia on the Air Force, Iran mainly on the ground, with this operatives and this certain proxies, that it had operating in Syria. And Hezbollah also fought in Syria. And that's why Hezbollah is so war hard now, because they fought in Syria. That's why the Hezbollah military is so war hard, okay, because of their fighting in Syria. Okay. So in 2014, the West attempted to overthrow the Assad regime then, all right, but Russia and Iran intervened. So they stopped the Assad regime from being toppled. Now, once they handled the ISIS problem and they stabilized the Syrian government, okay, Russia, all right, started to pull out. Now, Russia did set up military bases, and they started putting assets in Syria, which they was able to project their power in their region, because they was able to stage, all right, military assets in Syria. Iran, okay, they started to operate what we call the axis of resistance. Now, the axis of resistance, you keep hearing that term, is an Iran control, pretty much a military, like a proxy conglomerate. It's a conglomerate of Iranian proxies that operate between Syria, Iraq, uh, uh, Lebanon, okay, and Yemen with the Houthi rebels. Okay, so you have Hezbollah, all right, in Lebanon, the Houthi rebels in Yemen. Then you have the resistant forces in Syria, and you have resistant forces in Iraq. And Iran was able, to really project itself and chip away at those small hats, okay, with that axis of resistance, as they call it. Okay. So Iran benefited off of pro-Iranian government in Syria. Russia benefited off of pro-Iranian government in Syria. All right. And it was causing major strategic problems for the West. Okay. So what we have to remember, all right, when Russia, got pulled into the war with Ukraine, okay, and Iran, was dealing with the small hats through Hezbollah, through Hamas and through the Houthi rebels. Okay. So the thing was, they Russia and Iran, all right, because in 2018, the Sky really said the Russian generals was reporting to Putin, like, look, Syria military pretty much they bullshit. It's just the generals getting rich, corrupt government. They was being funded. There's a lot of speculation that CIA and the small hats paid off a lot of these top men, to pretty much just let the rebels come in. That's a speculated story. But overall, al-Assad, all right, he wasn't hard-nosed enough, all right, to build a military that could stand on its own, without the help of Russia and Iran. And Iran, when they got rid of ISIS, they wanted to come in and really set up shop. Okay, like they really wanted to move into Syria, but Russia was like, nah, that's gonna cause a lot of problems. We're not gonna do that. Like, look, we help stabilize the government, we gonna fall back. The Syrian government got to stand on their own. You know what I'm saying? We came and handled the big problem. They got to reorganize, okay, and make themselves, all right, self-sufficient, okay? So all this time has passed by, and the Syrian government been BSing, okay? So when the rebels came in, and Scott Ritter said, they thinking they was going to have to chip away. They went in thinking they was gonna have to chip away, but no. But as they went in, they came into an unorganized military, a lot of corruption, okay, and the government fell, like he said, like a house of cards. Now we have to understand that these small hats, all right, and Ukraine have been getting dominated on the battlefield. Okay, so what we see with the fall of the Syrian government, this is an act of desperation. Okay, it's been a long time coming, and they've been plotting and planning for this. Okay, but this was an act, all right, of desperation to get some leverage on the battlefield, because everything that they've been doing thus far hasn't given them any leverage on the battlefield. Okay, all the money that's been sent to the small hats in Ukraine hasn't given them the advantage on the battlefield. Okay, so this move here gives them an advantage now. Okay, and you have experts saying that this wasn't supposed to take place to March. Okay, but they fast tracked it. Okay, because of the way that the battlefield was going in Ukraine and in Syria. I mean, in Lebanon. Okay, so Scott is going to speak on that as well. So that's I'm gonna let him speak on this, and then I'm gonna go a little farther. Okay, I'm gonna go a little farther and let him speak a few more minutes. Okay, and then we'll uh sum it all up. But that's how we got to this point. All right, and when we seen, because when I first heard that the rebels was starting to attack, in Syria, well, I thought this gonna be quick. I'm thinking Russia and Iran gonna come in, and just obliterate these rebels, and that was gonna be the end of that. But Russia and Iran, because Russia pretty much told Iran to fall back, and Russia fell back, because it's like, it's so much corruption, and then it's so unorganized, the Syrian military. Okay, you don't know who's working for who. So Russia made the call, like, look, and told Iran, we're gonna fall back. Like, we can't babysit this nigga, and he got so much shit going on. We get involved in it, we could lose, assets and men based on his corruption. So they fell back. Russia and Iran didn't aid at all. Okay, so there was a call from Russia, to just, hey, let it crumble. You see, because they told him in 2018 he needed to get his shit together, and he been BSing, man. Okay, so 6 years later, and then Russia's been, occupied with Ukraine. Okay, so but the Assad regime, failed. All right, and now it's a whole different dynamic in the region, and we'll go to the map and kind of show, how things have changed, what this means going forward. All right, well, let's
do Syria, and it's not flying. The black flag is flying, and the black flag and this flag don't get along. And every time they fought in the past, the black flag has beaten this flag. these people cheering in the streets have this notion that, ding dong, the witch is dead, the wicked witch, and they're running around cheering. They don't understand that whatever you want to call Assad, he's gone. But what has replaced him is a nightmare. It's there. This is going to be a debacle for Syria. And again, from our perspective, this is good. This is what I've tried to tell people from day one. America doesn't care about Syrian people, about Lebanese people, about Iraqi people, about Iranian people. Our job is to facilitate chaos in regions that we don't control. And right now, we, together with Israel and Turkey, are trying to break the back of the axis of resistance, which was Iranian controlled but had been stiffened by the Russians. And it looks like we have succeeded, whether it is because we react to a situation that developed or whether it was by some strategic design that has yet to be articulated. We succeeded. Bashar al-Assad's gone. With it goes the Syrian land bridge between Iran and Hezbollah. Hezbollah is now isolated in Lebanon. They claim to have enough weapons to be able to continue resistance, but they're not going to get resupplied. And the other thing is this whole dynamic has changed. Israel now, who was defeated 2 weeks ago, literally, nobody's going to. I know people are saying it was a big Israeli scheme. They were planning. This was all that. No, Israel was getting their butts kicked in Lebanon by Hezbollah. That's why they had to have a ceasefire and pull back. But then this thing happens, and Israel went, whoa. And here's what the thing. Every military has contingency plans. Every military has them. And a contingency plan is, what if this happens? Well, here's our plan. It tells you what forces to do. Israel had a contingency plan for the fall of Damascus. And even though their military had been defeated by Hezbollah, not winning against Hamas, and has been demoralized for a year and a half, they pull out the contingency plan, and off they go into the Golan Heights, advance towards Kanathra. And look what they're doing with their Air Force right now. They're destroying the entire military infrastructure of Syria. All the research and development, military industry, ammo depots, military bases. They're destroying that because they don't want whoever took over to fall in on this capability. Remember, Syria had.
So what Scott Ritter spoke of was a land bridge, okay, from Iran, all right, to resupply, okay, Hezbollah, which is in Lebanon, with weaponry. So when you go to the map, let's go to this map. Let me know if y'all can see, if it show up good. But when you go to this map, all right, so you have Iran here, all right, in the orange, all right, then you have Iraq, all right, then you have Syria, okay, and then Syria, all right, has a major border with Lebanon. So Iraq is Iranian friendly, so Iran was able to get weapons from Iraq, okay, into Syria and funnel them into Hezbollah, okay. So this was, the supply chain. So with the Assad regime falling, now the supply line is cut. Okay, now their supply line is cut. Now Lebanon has a stockpile. They have a crazy stockpile of missiles. Okay, but they was fighting a war of attrition. Okay, which they was fighting a slow grinding war against these small hats. Okay, which they was wearing these small hats down. All right, Hezbollah was Israel, that ground invasion. That's why they had to do a ceasefire. Okay, you don't do a ceasefire if you got the ups. Okay, of course, like I said, we always go into how the small hats push propaganda, like they just dominating, blowing up cell phone. That wasn't doing nothing. Okay, even though they killed, Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah. Hezbollah was dominating the small hats on the ground. Okay, they haven't held any. They haven't held an inch of ground in Lebanon. Okay, so with them toppling the Assad regime, now Iran can't funnel weapons into Hezbollah. So now Hezbollah is isolated. Okay, now Hezbollah can do two things. They can get real conservative and draw back, okay, and become a mouse, or all right, hey, they can let it all hang out, okay, and see what's happening, because Syria played a major part, all right, in this axis of resistance that Iran was orchestrating, and Iran had it running like a well-oiled machine. You had Syria and Iraq resisting groups, okay, that was able to terrorize, American military bases in this region, when called upon. All right. You had Lebanon terrorizing northern Israel, and you had the Houthi rebels terrorizing, at the Red Sea. So Iran had a well-oiled machine, but it was a war of attrition. It was a slow grinding war. Okay. But now the Lord allowed this to happen. So guess what? Iran gonna have to get directly involved. They're gonna have to get involved more directly. Okay. The war of attrition, it was working, but now the Lord wants something else. Okay. The Lord wants this thing to turn up a notch. All right. To where we're gonna see more direct interaction militarily between the small hats and Iran. Okay, because this cripples their axis of resistance. Okay, which Hezbollah was the strongest player in this axis of resistance, man. But now it's been isolated. Okay, so it's gonna be interesting to see how the small hats play it, with Hezbollah, knowing that they're isolated and cut off, and it's gonna be interesting to see how Iran responds. Okay, Russia, the different, they're saying that they found, Russian, high tech, advanced Russian radars in Syria, that the rebels, are now. Okay, and the West is going to come in if they have Russian hardware, all right, radars and whatever, any type of Russian, all right, military assets. Okay, now the West can come in, reverse engineer, analyze it, see, how it work, and see how to attack Russia. So this puts Iran and Russia, okay, in a position to where they know, all right, they're gonna have to go. You see, they're not gonna be able to use proxies, because you had Hezbollah with Russian, hypersonic missiles. Okay, Hezbollah got Russian missiles. Like, you see, it's getting to the point to where now these proxies, okay, are going to be moved out the way, and we're going to see these heavyweights go at it. Okay, so the toppling of the Syrian government, swung things in the way of the West, which they've been, being dominated on all fronts. Okay, as of late, but this swings momentum in their way on the battlefield. This is the first thing that they've done that swings an advantage in their way on the battlefield. Okay, which is going to cause, Iran and Russia, hey, they're going to have to turn it up a notch. Okay, when it comes to how they deal. Okay, so um, uh, 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 let's see. All right, so yeah, we here. I just wanted to expound on that. I say I ain't gonna make it long, but that's what that mean. So the momentum has swung. All right, in the favor of the West on the battlefield. So it'd be interesting to see, and you can tell that they wasn't looking for the Assad regime to tumble that quick, because they didn't even have a ready-made government to replace it. This guy is saying he's a leader now. Some clown, just some some nigga, okay, some mercenary, that is propped up for the moment. Okay, because when they tried to overthrow Moderno in Venezuela, they already had a nigga that they was parading around, and you had different Western nations recognizing this guy as the governor. As the president of Venezuela. Okay, but they didn't never, they was never successful on that coup. Okay, so this is where we at. All right, and it's gonna be interesting going forward, man. Like I say, it gets good, but it all worked for our favor. If a brother can post that Romans 8:28, we always get into that. So let's get there. Romans 8:28. We'll end it there. All right. So this the brother Dumawathi of GMS in his likeness. Ezekiel 12:28. Therefore say unto them, thus said the Lord power, there shall none of my words be prolonged anymore, but the word which I have spoken shall be done, said the Lord power. And this, brings us another step closer, because these superpowers have been fighting, with each other through these proxies, for decades. America and Russia been fighting with each other through proxies, going back to the 70s, man. 60s, 70s. All right, almost 70 years, they've been fighting each other with proxy wars, man. All in, Central South America, Vietnam, Afghanistan. Okay. You see, the Korean War, all right. Russia and America was always, in the midst, okay, trying to project power, man. Okay, and cripple one another. But it's just getting closer to the time where they gonna have to clash directly, man. Okay, so this is Romans 8:28. It says that we know that all things work together for good to them that love the Most High, to them who are called according to His purpose. Okay, so all things work together for our good, man. Okay, all the corruption within these governments, betraying one another, all this treachery that we see with the infighting, and these devils are divided, from top to bottom, from the elites, okay, on down, okay, to Joe Sixpack, all right, and the civil unrest that's brewing in America, man. So everything is working in our favor, man. All right, so just to put things in perspective, what the fall of Syria's government mean, for this war. All right, less proxies, and more direct conflict. All right, going forward. All right, so we're just gonna watch and see these things play out. So Lord will you brothers and you sisters edified. Till next time, I say shalom.